Hey everyone, it's EverythingeeB here. Today I will be talking about the full story of Windows Vista, one of my personal favorites in the Windows line, but one of the most hated in the Windows community. It had the longest development span of any OS, lasting 5.5 years. When it finally came out, it was plagued with bugs, and compared to the more superior and stable XP, and within 2 years, Microsoft had moved on to the far more successful Windows 7. Let's take a look at what led to all of this. Windows Vista was famous in the Windows community for several problems. It had a very long development time, and when it did come out, it was still a work in progress, which people were not happy about. Microsoft even faced a class action lawsuit over Windows Vista because they had advertised Windows Vista Ready stickers on computers that could only run Windows Vista Home Basic. People just hated Windows Vista, and it didn't help that its successor came out nearly 3 years later, but was much more successful. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at Windows Vista's history. If you remember, back in October, I did a video where I talked about how Windows Vista didn't deserve the criticism it received. This is kind of a follow-up or a remaster of sorts to that video that came out in October. With all that out of the way, let's get started. Windows Vista's history begins in the early 2000s with its development. The development began with a roadmap in the year 2000, shortly after Windows 2000 had been released. Microsoft knew they had to make NT operating systems that would be aimed at consumers, so they began with a plan. 3 different OSs would be released from 2000 to 2005. There would be Windows Whistler in 2001, which would go on to become Windows XP. There would be Windows Blackcomb, later Windows 7, which was slated to release in 2005. And in between those two, there would be Windows Longhorn, a minor version of Windows slated for release in late 2003. The names came from ski resorts in British Columbia. Whistler and Blackcomb are 2 large ski resorts in the province, and they are right next to each other. However, visitors of the resort have to pass through between Longhorn, a bar between the two, which is where the name originally came from. Development officially started in May 2001, months before Windows XP's release. During this time, Longhorn was focused on minor changes to Windows XP, and Microsoft kept relatively quiet about its development, with a few teasers here and there of what was in the works. Most of the marketing went to Windows XP and Server 2003 at that point in time. Occasionally a build would be leaked through torrents and newsgroups, but nothing really major until Milestone 2/3 development. Windows Longhorn build 3663 was the first known build of Longhorn with leaked screenshots. It featured a theme named Plex, designed to be used as a placeholder until Microsoft had gotten Arrow ready for demonstration. However, it wasn't until build 3683, leaked on October 20th, 2002, that the public got its first demonstration of Windows Longhorn. It came with a lot of aesthetic changes as well as some other major changes, such as the sidebar, a widget-based bar that would go on the right of the display. WinFS was also demoed during the development build, which was supposed to be a new file system for Microsoft. After a few months of little to no news from Microsoft about Windows Longhorn, Build 4008 was leaked 9 days after compilation on February 28, 2003. It featured a new version of the Plex theme as well as a GUI-based Windows setup. The biggest change had to be with Windows Explorer, as it was completely redesigned from the ground up. A new search system, a classier theme for the Explorer, and the removal of the animated characters, sadly, was made present in this new build. It was followed with another build a couple of months later, named Build 4015. There are a lot of builds leaked with Windows Longhorn, and it could take me forever to explain them all. In short, Windows Longhorn was looking like a very exciting and promising OS for enthusiasts, but internally there were quite a bit of problems. Microsoft had been trying to cram as much as they could into Windows Longhorn, but they soon realized that a lot of feature creep was going into Longhorn, and all the important features that were for Windows Blackcomb were starting to slip into Windows Longhorn. As well as that, there were also a lot of Explorer leaks due to the instability of the operating system. They were also shocked by Apple macOS Tiger that came out in 2005. It was much more stable than Longhorn, with a lot of Longhorn's features already included. From there, they reset development in August 2004 and worked on the project for a very long time, building it off the Windows Server 2003 codebase. I'm not going to go into development here because the development of that from that point forward would take absolutely forever to explain, but long story short, in November 2006, they had the RTM build ready to ship and finally shipped it. And when they did, they had to deal with the next part, the public reaction. When Windows Vista was finally released to the general public on January 30th, 2007, it was met with immediate backlash. Critics called out the constant blue screens of death that were famous on the OS. There is this one video that is my favorite called Windows Vista Sure Likes Blue, where a computer blue screens twice before finally being able to log in. Windows Vista was really that unstable, and it frustrated a lot of users, especially those who got Windows Vista pre-bundled on their brand new computers. It also relied a lot on a very powerful computer. The requirements called for a 1 GHz processor and a gig of RAM, which also made users angry as a lot of people did not have very good computers. XP was just a lot faster for those who could not run Vista, and that's why it remained more popular than Vista. This hardware issue also plagued new computers with something called Windows Vista Ready. If you don't know what that is, basically some computers came with Windows XP pre-installed, but they had stickers that said Windows Vista Ready or Windows Vista Capable. Consumers didn't know, however, that their computers could only run a basic version of Windows Vista, such as Windows Vista Home Basic or Starter, and when people found out the hard way, they sued Microsoft in a class action lawsuit over their computers not actually being able to run the real Vista. There was also the fact that Windows Vista barely had any hardware support to begin with. Display drivers had to be re-signed to work on Windows Vista because of the transition from XP Driver Manager, or XPDM, to the Windows Display Driver Manager. As well as that, some manufacturers, even the biggest ones like Nvidia and ATI, didn't actually remake their display drivers for Windows Vista immediately. The process to get your driver quote-unquote signed would take weeks, and smaller companies simply did not have the time to reprogram their drivers to work with Windows Vista. But was Microsoft standing still the whole time that people were ranting about Windows Vista? Certainly not. And that brings us to the next part, which is the response. Microsoft clearly thought Windows Vista had a chance, so they immediately started to work on SP81 throughout the whole of 2007. In February 2008, they released Service Pack 1 of Windows Vista. It fixed quite a few problems people had with Windows Vista, but a couple of months later, in April, Service Pack 3 for Windows XP was released. Due to the fact that Windows XP was already on Service Pack 3 and Windows Vista was only on Service Pack 1, and also due to the financial recession going on at the time, a lot of people chose to stick with Windows XP instead of upgrading to the extremely expensive Windows Vista. Microsoft also started an ad campaign called the Mojave Experiment. This was an ad campaign for Windows Vista where employees at Microsoft would pull in participants to talk about what they had heard about Windows Vista. And then they would show a computer running an OS they dubbed Mojave. They would then get the reaction from people using the computers, which was usually people raving at how good it was and how they would buy Mojave when it came out. Then the people who were in charge would reveal that Mojave was just a rebranded version of Windows Vista. Take a look at the ad campaign here.
So it's just an informal discussion. I'll be asking some questions and you just answer them as honestly as you can.
So why haven't you upgraded to Vista yet?
Just the bad things I've heard about it.
I just heard negative things. I never tried it myself. I wouldn't touch the thing.
It's horrible. We have so many problems.
Crashes.
I've heard nothing but bad things about Vista, really.
I'd like you to rate your overall favorability of Windows Vista.
Okay.
To the paper. Okay, so you gave Windows Vista a 0.
Today, I'm going to show you a little bit about Windows Mojave, which is actually the newest version of Windows.
I want to see it. I want to see how it works.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I like that security feature.
That's great.
So,
That's great.
I love gadgets.
Man, it's awesome.
Oh, what do you think of this new upgrade?
Really cool.
It's very impressive.
The speed is incredible, right?
I need an upgrade, and that looks like everything that I would need.
I would put this as a 10.
All right.
Well, I have to confess to you, this is Vista.
Really?
Blew my mind.
Are you serious?
This is Windows Vista.
Son of a gun. Yeah, you got me.
I had no idea that you could do all this with Windows Vista.
It represents a lot of things that you could only dream of a few years back.
Actually, it's totally different than what I had heard it would be like.
I'm impressed.
I mean, it looks awesome. I mean, it just seems so easy.
I'm getting it.
I would say it's an awesome program, but you have to see for yourself.
The ad campaign was a failure, with many reviewers criticizing Microsoft for not taking into account that it was a computer pre-installed with Windows Vista and that the real problem came with installing drivers and applications. Microsoft soon cancelled the ad campaign. Finally came the aftermath. 2009 rolled around and Service Pack 2 came out for Windows Vista in May. At this point though, Windows 7 had been announced and the public was more interested in a fresh copy of Windows rather than the risk of having issues with Vista. In 6 months, Windows 7 had been released to consumers who loved the operating system immediately. Windows Vista was left to suffer while a rebranded version of it was becoming the most successful operating system since XP. And yes, I am calling Windows 7 a rebranded version of Vista, cause it was. After a little while, Microsoft stopped caring about Windows Vista as well. There simply wasn't enough market share for Microsoft to actually want to do anything with it. In 2012, when Microsoft announced Office 2013, they also announced that Windows XP and Vista wouldn't support the new version of Office. XP not getting it wasn't a surprise to anyone, however Vista not getting it was a surprise as Vista still had 5 more years of support. But alas, Microsoft had more or less stopped caring about it, and so had program developers. Windows Vista's program support ended around the same time as XP in most or all of cases. For example, Google Chrome supported Windows XP and Vista until 2016, when they finally cut off support. The thing about that was that Vista had a year more support, so support shouldn't have cut out for it, unlike XP, which was 2 years dead. But that brings us to a commonly asked question: was Windows Vista really that bad? The answer, in my opinion, would be yes and no. Yes, it was really bad as people said it was back in 2007 to 2009. It was slower than previous versions of Windows, such as XP in 2000. It had a lot of issues at launch with bugs, stability, and compatibility. But also, no, it didn't deserve these criticisms. Windows XP had a lot of the same problems as Windows Vista did at launch. People really didn't like the Luna theme on XP because it looked childish, and the product activation systems made a lot of people quite angry at XP. But over time, people came to like Windows XP because it was the latest OS for 5 years, and the only other one supported other than Windows 2000, when Windows Vista came out. When Windows 7 came out, the OEMs really started to make hardware more powerful, and technologies like the Sandy Bridge Intel chips in 2011 made running Windows 7 a piece of cake. So I know this has been quite a long video, but I want to briefly touch down on the final part, present day love. And yes, that's exactly what I'm calling this part. Windows Vista support ended on April 11th, 2017. However, a lot of the support for the operating system has been appearing on YouTube and the Windows community. First came a wave of YouTubers dedicated to modding and using Windows Vista on the daily. Then came the largest extended kernel project we have ever seen in July of 2020. Now we have the latest version of Firefox and Chromium running on a 14-year-old operating system. It's absolutely amazing, and it proves that Windows Vista still has a lot of support technically from the Windows community even today. I think I'm going to end this video here. It has been quite a long video, and I really hope you guys have enjoyed my take on Windows Vista. And if you did, a subscription would go a long way, as well as sharing it with others. And with that, I'll see you all next time.